Welcome to School Easy. This is an introduction for grade 11 students. School Easy will give you easier ways of studying difficult topics. Hello children, welcome to grade 11. Congratulations on passing from grade 10 to grade 11. This video is specifically for science students who have taken physics and chemistry, mostly for children who haven't taken mathematics. In grade 11, you are introduced to a lot of new concepts, new topics, new forms of calculations like calculus, trigonometry, vectors, logs. All of this becomes very overwhelming. The jump from grade 10 to grade 11 is extremely high. It's a big leap. I suggest that you learn all of these concepts separately before starting your word problems or theoretical problems. If all of them are introduced at once, it becomes overwhelming and difficult to understand each concept. Do not try to start solving a theoretical problem and the vectors and the logs all in one go. Before you start your physics and chemistry problems, learn how to use logs. Do problems just on logs. There will be many websites showing this on the net. Do not introduce theory. Similarly, learn vectors, addition, subtraction, dot product, cross product. Do problems on vectors alone, not physics problems, no theory. Plain vectors. Master yourself in these topics, vectors and logs, and then start using them in physics and chemistry. Logs are heavily used in chemistry and vectors in physics. Also trigonometry in physics. In this video, I'll give you an introduction to trigonometry, especially for the students who are not taking mathematics. They'll find trigonometry a little difficult. It is not very difficult, it's quite easy. I'll teach with graphs. Remember, if as a KG or a grade 1 child, you just had to start solving word problems without learning addition and subtraction, and you had to do all of it together, wouldn't it be difficult? That's the case you find in 11th. So please get used to these concepts initially before starting your problems. Let's start with the basics of trigonometry that you have learned already in the 10th grade. I have drawn a triangle that is a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle ABC. Since it's a 90-degree triangle, you have the hypotenuse square is equal to sum of the squares of the other two sides. We all know this by Pythagoras theorem. So these are the measurements. The side opposite angle 30 degrees is 1 unit. The side opposite 60 degrees is √3 units, and the hypotenuse is sum of squares of these two sides, 1 square plus √3 square, which is 1 plus 3, which is equal to 4, and square root of 4 is 2. We all know this. Now we'll come to trigonometry, how to find the sine. Sine of an angle is opposite side upon the hypotenuse. Cos of an angle is adjacent side upon the hypotenuse. So if you see sine 30 degrees, if you see the first figure, is side BC by side AB, which is 1 by 2. Cos 30 is side AC by side AB, which is √3 by 2. And tan of 30 is sine 30 by cos 30, or opposite side by adjacent side, which is BC by AC, which is 1 by √3. Similarly, sine 60 will become √3 by 2 because it's BC by AC in the second figure. And cos 60 in the second figure will be AC by AB, which is 1 by 2. Similarly, tan 60 is sine 60 by cos 60, or it is the opposite of angle 60 by the adjacent side of angle 60, √3 by 1. This is very basic. I have not gone much into the details. I suppose you know all of this from grade 10. Let's do calculation of sine, cos and tan for angles that are not 30, 60. Angles that cannot be drawn on a triangle like 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180, 270. This can be done through a graph. We plot it on the x and y axis. Understand that the sine of an angle is actually the value on y-axis of a graph, and the cos of an angle is the value on the x-axis on a xy graph. Now if I draw a 0-degree line on the graph, it will fall on the x-axis. There is no value on the y-axis. The value is 0. Hence sine of 0 is 0. And cos of 0 will be the value on x-axis, which we will take it to be 1 unit. Tan of 0 is sine by cos of 0, and that hence is 0. Now let's go to sine 90. A 90-degree line will fall on the y-axis. So it will have a value on y-axis and the value on x-axis is 0. Hence sine 90 is 1 and cos 90 is 0. Since tan 90 is sine divided by cos and cos 90 is 0, it's undefined because anything divided by 0 is undefined. Now let's go to 180-degree angle. It falls on the x-axis but on the negative side. So since y value is 0, sine 180 is 0, but cos 180 is minus 1. It's negative 1 because it falls on the negative side of the x-axis. It's a negative value. Tan 180 naturally becomes 0 because sine 180 is 0. Let's see sine 270. If you see the angle 270, it falls on the y-axis but in the negative direction. Hence, the value on y-axis for 270 degree is minus 1 and on x-axis it's 0. Sine 270 becomes minus 1, cos 270 becomes 0 and tan 270 is undefined. So learn how to you find sine and cos based on a graph. Similarly, we'll go to other angles and we'll just use the xy graph to understand sine, cos and tan. In this video, we will learn to find sine, cos and tan of angles that are multiples of 30 using a graph. We won't use the regular formulas in mathematics because they are difficult to memorize and remember. We'll just use the graph and you'll see how simple it is. And you can use the same and apply it for 45-degree multiples of 45 degrees angles. These are some of the sine and cos expansion formulas. As I said, there is no need to memorize this if you're not a math student. For example, if I ask you what is sine of 150, you might go ahead and do sine of 90 plus 60 and then use these formulas. You will get the answer in that way, but we will look at an easier method. Using the formula sine A plus B, sine 150 is sine 90 plus 60, which is sine 90 cos 60 plus cos 90 sine 60. If you see, as we evaluate, we get the answer to be 1 by 2. Similarly, sine 330 can be sine 360 minus 30, sine A minus B, which is sine A cos B minus cos A sine B. And as you see, I have solved it here and it becomes minus 1 by 2. Now the next slide will show how to do this without using any of these formulas. Let's look at sine 30 on the xy axis. It is same as the triangle that we did in a previous slide. Sine 30-degree triangle is drawn in the first quadrant and its sine is 1 by 2. 2 is the value on the hypotenuse and 1 is the value opposite to 30 degrees, which is actually the value of the y coordinate. Now, let's look at sine 150. We saw in the previous slide that we had to use an expansion formula, sine 90 plus 60. Isn't the 150-degree angle line a mirror image of the 30-degree angle line in the second quadrant? So what do you see there? What is the value of y-axis there? Again, plus 1, because in second quadrant y-axis is positive. So sine 150 is the same as sine 30 degrees. Very simple. Now let's look at sine 210 degrees. No need to use any formula. Just see the line for 210 degrees. Isn't it diagonally opposite to 30 degrees in the third quadrant? Or it is a mirror image of 150 degrees around the x-axis. So now the y value, since sine is a y value, it is negative. So the answer is minus 1 by 2. Now let's look at sine 330 degrees, and it falls in the fourth quadrant. It is a mirror image of sine 30 degrees but around the x-axis. So again the value of y is negative. So it's minus 1 by 2. Very simple. These are all mirror image of 30 degrees. If it falls in first and second quadrant, it is positive. If it falls in third and fourth quadrant, it's negative, because we are taking the value of y for sine. Now in the next slide, let us look at the cos of these angles. Now let's look at some of the cos formulas. Cos A plus B is cos A cos B minus sin A sin B. Now we have a new formula. Now cos 90 plus 60, as I have applied in the formula, we get an answer negative root 3 by 2. Similarly, cos 330 can be written as cos 360 minus 30. And expansion of the formula cos A cos B plus sin A sin B, eventually we get root 3 by 2. Please remember children that 360 degrees is same as 0 degrees. So whatever is the value of 0, sin 0, cos 0 will apply to cos 360, sin 360, etc. Now let's look at those same values that we figured out in the previous slide with the formulas, with calculations, simply by drawing a graph here. I have done the same 30 degree, 150 degree, 210 degree, 330 degree values in this graph, but this time we will do cos, which means we'll look at the value on the x-axis, not the y-axis. As we see, cos of 30 is root 3 by 2. It's a triangle that I have drawn in the previous slide, but now on a graph. The value root 3 is on the x-axis. Cos 150 is a mirror image of cos 30 around the y-axis. But it's a value on the x-axis which becomes negative in the second quadrant. So it's minus root 3 by 2. Now cos 210 is diagonally opposite to cos 30, or it is a mirror image of 150 around the x-axis, and it's in the third quadrant. Again here, in the third quadrant, my x value is negative, so cos of 210 is minus root 3 by 2. Now, cos of 330 degrees, mirror image of 30 degrees around the x-axis, but in the fourth quadrant, x-axis is positive, hence it is plus root 3 by 2. So cos value is positive in first and fourth quadrant and negative in second and third quadrant. Now let's look at the formula for tan. My goodness, this is really difficult. Are we going to memorize all of this? No. Look at tan 150. If I try to write it as tan of 90 plus 60 and use the formula tan A plus tan B upon 1 minus tan A tan B. Tan 90, as we have seen before, is undefined. We can't solve it like this. Undefined plus root 3 by 1 divided by 1 minus undefined into root 3 by 1. Okay, let's look at another way. Let's look at tan A minus B. So 150 can be written as 180 minus 30. What do we see here now? Okay, we don't have undefined values, which is good. We start with tan 180, which is 0, minus tan 30, and in the denominator 1 plus tan 180 tan 30. After solving this, we come to the value minus 1 by root 3. In the next slide, we'll look at the graph and see how simple it is without doing any of these steps. Okay, let's look at the tan of angles now. Now we have to look at both x and y values because tan of an angle is value of y by value of x, because it's sine by cos. Sine is the value of y and cos is the value of x. As you see, tan of 30, value of y is 1, value of x is root 3. And now we'll look at tan 150, which is a mirror image of 30 around y-axis. Here, now y is positive, but x is negative, so it's 1 by minus root 3. Tan is negative. Look at the value of tan, 210 degrees, which is diagonally opposite to 30 degrees. Both y and x values are negative. It's minus 1 by minus root 3. Hence, it becomes positive 1 by root 3. And tan 330 is mirror image of 30 around x-axis, where y is negative and x is positive. So you have minus 1 by root 3 and you have a negative 1 by root 3. So tan is positive in first and third quadrant, negative in second and fourth quadrant. If you look at the statement, add sugar to coffee, it's an acronym where we see that all sine, cos, tan are positive in first quadrant, sine is positive in second quadrant, tan is positive in third quadrant, and only cos is positive in the fourth quadrant. Now you can see how simple it has been to find tan of all four angles using the graph without the formula. The formula, you make mistakes and you take long to find. And we'll go to the next slide into some exercises. Time for an exercise. It's a very simple one. You just have to draw the graph and the angles. Find the value of sine, cos and tan of 60 and mirror image of 60 around x and y axis, which is 120, 240 and 300 degrees. Similarly, find the sine, cos, tan of 45 degrees. That is much easier than 30 and 60, and the mirror image of 45 degrees. I have mentioned the angles here. And remember the acronym, add sugar to coffee. I don't think this exercise will take more than 5 minutes. And children, just to be easy for you, in your exam paper, in your rough section, you can just draw a graph quickly with pen. Not a very neat one with pencil, scale, etc. And just draw your angles around so that you have a rough idea of which mirror image you have to take. Do you have to take a mirror image of 30 or 60 or 45? That is all you need to know. And your answers are right there in front of you. It will hardly take less than a minute to do. Okay? Have a good day. Find easy ways of studying. And this is Easy School.